Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to call upon Mr. Terry Watson, State President of the Young Democrats of the state of Kansas, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My fellow Americans, it is my great pleasure to present to you a most beautiful and talented songstress who will lead us in the singing of our national anthem. It is my honor to present to you Miss Anita Bryant.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you very much. My fellow delegates, I have the great honor of recognizing the host of this convention, the mayor of this great city, the Honorable Mayor Daley.
Mr. Chairman, I think on this very important and significant day of the birthday of one of the greatest presidents of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson, we should sing a song and ask Anita to lead us in Happy Birthday, President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lyndon. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. I would like to dedicate one of your favorite songs for your birthday, and may I also dedicate this song to our brave and dedicated fighting men in Vietnam.
God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
National Democrats have organized in every congressional district in the state. Their party represents the whole state of Alabama. They are running candidates for every office, from U.S. Senator to probate judge and sheriff. I believe it is time for the Democratic Party to go on record as that party which faced the issue of racial discrimination and unequivocally stood up for racial justice. Let us not do to Alabama in 1968 what we did to Mississippi in 1964. If we do not confront the issue now, we will be here in 1972 fighting the same fight. Let's win it now. I request a roll call vote, and I have the signatures from 8 states.
Delegate Sandra Ho has consumed 3 minutes. The chair now recognizes Delegate Fannie Lou Hamer of the state of Mississippi.
Mr. Chairman, Governor Hughes, I'm here speaking for the National Democratic Party from Alabama. 1964, Fannie Lou Hamer was on the outside trying to get in. We know the long pattern of discrimination not only in Mississippi, but also in the state of Alabama. We also know that Governor Wallace is running today for President of the United States, and he's only pledged as a Democrat in the state of Alabama. It is time for us to wake up, America. We always talk about a minority, but we don't even say minority when you carry our sons to fight in Vietnam. I support Dr. Cashin from Alabama, but because it's time for us to stop pretending that we are loyal, but act in the manner that we are. And if we are the Democratic Party of this country, we should stop just giving a tokenism and seat so many this year, and 4 years later, seat for another delegation. It's time tonight to seat the delegation with the National Democratic Party from Alabama, and that would be Dr. Cashin and his delegation that represent all the people, not just a few, representing not only the whites, but the black as well. Thank you.
Delegate Fannie Lou Hamer has consumed 2 minutes. The chair now recognizes United States Representative Jonathan Bingham of the state of New York.
Mr. Chairman, Governor Hughes, ladies and gentlemen, there is one major difference between this challenge and the other challenges that this Assembly has unfortunately denied. And that difference is that this is the only one that presents a confrontation between this great Democratic Party and the man who wants to wreck this Democratic Party, and that man is George Wallace. This delegation that has been sent here by the so-called Democratic Party of Alabama has chosen its electors for the presidency, and those electors are pledged to George Wallace. This same so-called Democratic Party of Alabama has an executive committee of 72, and they are all white. Now, in both these respects, this party has violated, crudely violated, the standards laid down in the call for this convention. Those standards, and I think it is well that we recall what they require. They require, and I quote, that the party certifying delegates undertakes to assure that voters in the state, regardless of race, color, or creed, national origin, will have the opportunity to participate fully in party affairs and to cast their election ballots for the nominees selected by the convention and for electors who are pledged formally and in good conscience to the election of those nominees under the Democratic Party label and designation. Now, this so-called Democratic Party in Alabama cannot carry out that obligation. It has not permitted full participation of all in its affairs, and it does not deserve to have its delegates seated by this convention. The solution offered by the Credentials Committee, and I honor them for their sincere efforts, but the majority of the Credentials Committee passes all this by and lets it go, all these violations, simply because they say they will accept pledges from the delegates that they will not oppose the nominees of this convention. And that is all they ask. Now, that pledge is not sufficient, I submit to the members of this convention, to wipe out the violations of the pledge, of the call of this convention. Incidentally, violations which are also under the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which required that there be no discrimination in the election of party officers, violations of law as well as of the call to this convention. What this Democratic Party of ours needs is broadening and strengthening. We can get that from the National Democratic Party, which has sent here a fully representative delegation. What kind of support can we expect to get from a delegation that is here from a party whose electors are pledged to George Wallace and who are let off the hook simply on the basis that they promise not to oppose our nominees? So, ladies and gentlemen, the choice is clear in this case. The choice is the Democratic Party as we know it, as we believe in it, with its ideals of opportunity and equality for all, or it is a delegation that comes here at the behest of the man that wants to bury our party, George Wallace. I leave the choice to you.
Congressman Bingham has consumed 4 minutes. A total of 6 minutes remains. The chair now recognizes Mayor Richard Hatcher of Indiana.
Mr. Chairman, Governor Hughes, delegates to this convention, ladies and gentlemen, the regular Alabama Democratic Party has consistently excluded Negroes from full participation in party affairs. The United States Civil Rights Commission has documented instance after instance of deliberate discrimination, interference with Negro poll watchers, disqualification of Negro ballots on technical grounds, refusal to assist illiterate voters, withholding information on qualifications for office, increasing filing fees, and on and on and on. The denial of full and equal participation to Negroes directly violates the call of this convention and forfeits all the rights of the regular party to send delegates to the National Convention. The Credentials Committee decided that all members of the regular party slate may be seated in the convention if they will take an individual loyalty oath not to support the presidential candidate of any other party. But an individual loyalty oath is not an answer to the challenge against the regular slate. The National Democratic Party of Alabama, led by Dr. John Cashin, is asking that its delegation be seated in the convention. The Cashin Party is a real political party. It is organized in all counties of the state and is running candidates for the Senate, Congress, and scores of local offices. The delegation to the National Convention was chosen democratically through open convention. There is token Negro representation on the regular slate, and the effect of the compromise may be to add a few more Negroes. In contrast, the Cashin slate is half white and half Negro and represents a party committed to full participation in party affairs for all races. The real choice of this convention is between a regular party Mr. Chairman, the real choice of this convention is between a regular party which refuses to abandon George Wallace and his racist philosophy, and a new party which offers hope for equality and democracy in Alabama. The Democratic Party can no longer afford to compromise. I urge you to support the minority resolution. Thank you.
Speaking in behalf of the majority report, the following have requested time. Delegate Robert Vance of Alabama, Delegate Larry Scalise of Iowa, Delegate Arthur Shores of Alabama, and Governor Hughes. The chair recognizes Delegate Robert Vance of Alabama.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the convention, I rise in opposition to the minority report. While trying unsuccessfully to work my way into an already overcrowded schedule at the New York caucus, I was privileged this afternoon to listen for a while to their proceedings.
Let me get some water. This is a very important discussion. In a few minutes, the convention will take a roll call on a very important issue. May I suggest to all of you that we pay some attention here. Will all delegates take their seats? And will the Sergeant at Arms clear the aisles? Will the Sergeant at Arms clear the aisles? The chair recognizes Delegate Vance.
This afternoon I heard in the New York caucus that they had great pride, that they had led the way on every question of human rights. I'm sure that most of the persons on the Credentials Committee who sponsored the minority report, there were a few, were sincerely mistaken in believing that this challenge involves a question of human rights. Quite the contrary is true. The complexity of the Alabama case has opened the way for demagoguery, smear sheets, and some deliberate misinformation. As your Credentials Committee did, let's now look at the facts. In Alabama, not only public officers, but almost everyone in party office is selected by the people. Elector candidates, convention delegates, national committeemen, national committeewoman, state committee members, county committee members are all selected in a Democratic primary. The result tends to be less consistent than it is in some of your home states, where there is a more monolithic party organization. Generalizations based on more usual practices are sometimes grossly inaccurate in Alabama. Alabama's delegation to the 1968 Democratic National Convention was popularly elected in a primary in which all of Alabama's voters were invited to participate. The primary was an open primary. Delegates were selected as individuals. There were no statewide alignments, organized slates, or group electioneering. The rules governing the primary were the least restrictive in modern history. The delegate selection process itself was probably the most democratic in the entire nation. It was a primary where over 1.5 million Alabamians, black and white, were eligible to participate, as compared to the contestants' selection at a meeting by its total membership of approximately 200. The contestant represented to the Credentials Committee that it had held 67 county conventions, but the uniform proof from every daily newspaper in Alabama by sworn affidavit established that there were no county conventions held at all, merely one state convention of 200 people, its total membership. The Alabama case was meticulously considered by your Credentials Committee. The committee's decision was overwhelming. It was supported by members from North, East, South, and West, black and white. 3 things resulted from that committee report. Every Alabama delegate and alternate was required to declare his good faith and pledge that he would not support anyone other than the nominee of this convention. Some declined to do so, and they are not with us here this evening. Every Alabamian in this hall has so pledged. Unlike 1964, electors pledged to the nominee of this convention are carried on the ballot in Alabama in the number 1 position under the label Democratic and under a donkey. Those elector candidates are leading loyalists. They are here tonight as part of the seated delegation. The delegation which is seated here tonight is supported by organized labor in Alabama. The state president of the AFL-CIO stated to the Credentials Committee that he strongly urged in unequivocal terms that the delegation that's here be seated. The head of the United Steelworkers of America accompanied us for the presentation of Alabama's case. It is supported by the leaders of every effective Negro organization in the state of Alabama. It includes the heads of such organizations in Alabama as the NAACP, the Alabama Democratic Conference, and the Alabama Teachers Association. It is supported by every well-known leader who has fought the Democratic Party's cause in Alabama for the last generation. One of the men who is with me on the platform tonight, one of the Negro leaders who has been fighting the battle in Alabama for over a quarter of a century, has the dubious distinction of living in the most bombed residence in the entire United States. At no prior convention have Negroes represented Alabama. The seated delegation that's here this evening is over 20% Negro in a popularly elected delegation. Those who, for expediency alone, would support the minority report and vote against this delegation would vote against the stout soldiers of the Democratic Party who have fought under the most difficult of odds. Those who vote against this committee's report and for the minority report would vote against organized labor in Alabama, which strives for a constructive and progressive future in our state. Those who would vote for the minority report would vote against those Negro leaders who are fighting the fight in Alabama. They would vote against popular elections themselves.
Delegate Vance has consumed 5 minutes. The chairman of the committee has requested 3 minutes. The chair now recognizes Delegate Larry Scalise.
2 minutes. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of this convention, I rise in support of the Credentials Committee report for several reasons. We heard all of the evidence that was presented to us. We debated this very question at some length, and we reached our conclusions for these reasons, ladies and gentlemen. The first big reason that occurred to me was this: the Cashin Group is not made up of a broad representation of the Democratic Party or of those who vote for loyal Democrats in the state of Alabama. Only 200 people attended their supposed statewide convention. The testimony was that they claim they represent at least 2,000 people. But the key point with respect to this, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of all of the cases that we have heard. The key point is notice. And if you go back and if you read all of the civil rights cases, and if you read the call of this convention, ladies and gentlemen, you will find that notice for full opportunity of participation in party affairs is the key point in everything. It is due process. It is civil rights. And I submit to you on the record made in the Credentials Committee report, no notice of any convention by the Cashin Group was ever given to anyone. And so, for that reason alone, I would say to all of you, they have not met the call of this convention and do not deserve to be seated here. But there are other reasons, ladies and gentlemen, just as compelling. This group does not now, and there is a serious legal question as to whether or not they ever will be able to have electors placed on the ballot in Alabama supporting the nominees of this convention. And so, if we were to seat the Cashin Group, as I say to you, there is not now an elector on the ballot under the Cashin Group's heading that is pledged to support the nominees of this convention, and there is an extremely serious legal question as to whether or not there ever would be. Furthermore, the Cashin Group at all times had the opportunity to participate in statewide primary elections to elect themselves as delegates and alternates to this convention. The evidence that we heard and that I recall was to the effect that Dr. Cashin advised those people to stay out of those primaries and not participate. And so again, ladies and gentlemen, I say to you, they have not met the call of this convention. And finally and lastly, I say to all of you, all you have to do is walk over and look at the Alabama delegation tonight, and you will find that that delegation is made up of 20% of the Negro population. 20% of their delegation is Negro. And it seems to me that that's a fair representation. It seems to me, with respect to that, we ought to support the recommendations of the Credentials Committee report. Thank you very kindly.
Delegate Scalise has consumed 3 minutes. The chair now recognizes Delegate Arthur Shores for 4 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Governor Hughes, ladies and gentlemen of this convention, my remarks in support of the resolution of the majority of the Credentials Committee concerning the Alabama delegation will indeed be brief. In considering the challenges to the delegation of the Democratic Party of Alabama, the Credentials Committee was faced with one basic question. Should supporters of the third-party candidacy of the American Independent Party of former Governor George Wallace be entitled to be seated as delegates and alternates of this convention? The majority members of the Credentials Committee, the majority members of the Credentials Committee answered that question with a resounding no. Those bringing a minority report to the floor of this convention also answered that question no. At this, the most basic level, the majority and the minority reports are in full agreement to implement its decision that supporters of George Wallace should not be seated as delegates to this convention. The Credentials Committee resolved that delegates from Alabama be required to provide assurance of their loyalty to the National Democratic Party as a precondition to being seated. Specifically, have they been asked to declare that they are bona fide Democrats who will participate here in good faith and that they will not support the candidacy of anyone other than the nominees of this convention. It was resolved that any vacancies created by the failure of the delegates to provide and that remaining vacancies be filled with the delegation proposed by the Alabama Democratic Party. The proponents of the minority report will argue that a delegation so constituted will fail to comply with the call to the convention. They will tell you that this delegation cannot meet the requirement of the call that the state party undertake to assure voters in the state the opportunity to cast their ballot for electors pledged to the nominee of this convention. This, however, is plainly not so. A slate of electors pledged to the National Democratic ticket already appears on the Alabama ballot in the first column. This slate of electors
was selected by a caucus of the Alabama Independent Democratic Party, and a caucus held on the 7th of May. The proponents of the minority report do not deny, nor can they deny, that these electors are pledged to the nominees of this convention, nor can they plausibly deny that the voters of Alabama will have the opportunity to vote for these electors. The presence of their name indelibly imprinted on every ballot precludes such a claim. Since it is undeniable that Alabama voters will have the opportunity to cast their ballots for electors pledged to the national ticket, I urge this convention to adopt the resolution presented to it by the majority of the Credentials Committee. Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the chairman of the committee, Governor Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, in urging the rejection of this minority report, I'd like to clear up a rather complex situation by telling you that there were two challenges to the certified Alabama delegation. One challenge was brought by members of the Independent Democratic organization, and the other by the National Democratic Party, which has been referred to as the group headed by Dr. Cashin. Dr. Cashin's group made two requests: that the certified delegates be ousted and that his group be permitted to take their place. But he made an alternative request in saying that the National Democratic Party challenged the loyalty of a number of delegates on the certified list who allegedly were committed to the candidacy of Governor George Wallace. The other challenge only challenged that loyalty, and we have disposed of it by holding that loyalty, or rather a disclaimer of disloyalty, will be insisted upon. There are on this certified regular Alabama delegation the finest kind of men who have disclaimed any notion of disloyalty, such as by supporting George Wallace. Now you'll remember that the great Adlai Stevenson, and I share his views, believed in the honor of delegates who would come before a convention and say, "I am not disloyal to the nominees of this convention." He said you could take their word. And I tell you that the combined delegation now, the certified regular delegation, and anybody on it, the few on it who want to support George Wallace, have taken off. They won't sign a disclaimer of disloyalty. They've been succeeded by people from the Independent Democratic Party who do swear loyalty to the nominees of this convention. We have found that in the selection process, the certified delegation, as added to by these independent Democrats, fully complies with the call of this 1968 convention. The fact of the matter is this, that if that fine certified delegation is ousted, having disclaimed any disloyalty, we have determined that there are electors on the ballot in Alabama pledged to support the nominees of this party who will be supported by the people on the certified delegation. No one in the world would be happier if you destroyed this certified delegation and supplanted it by the National Democratic delegation than a certain man called George Wallace. He'd want you to sustain this minority report, and I hope that you will not do it. I ask you to vote no on the minority report.
My fellow delegates, a majority of 8 state delegations, to wit, Mississippi, Colorado, Wisconsin, the District of Columbia, New Hampshire, South Dakota, New York, and Iowa, have requested a roll call of the convention on the question whether the minority report of the Credentials Committee relating to Alabama should be adopted. The question is on the adoption of the minority report. All those in favor will respond on the roll call with aye. All those opposed to the minority report will respond to the roll call with a nay. The chair now calls the secretary to call the roll.
Alaska,
Did we get a vote? The state of Alaska votes 14 yeas, 8 no.
can you get some order?
14, 8 noes.
I need Jack Murphy up here by me. Where is he?
The secretary will not proceed with the roll call until we have some order in this convention hall. This is a very important roll call.
I would like to ask Alaska to repeat that vote for the benefit of everyone in the hall.
Alaska votes 14 yeas, 8 no.
Excuse me. The chair has been requested to explain the motion. The motion is on the adoption of the minority report. All delegations in favor of the minority report will respond with an aye. All those against will respond with a nay.
Alaska's vote was 14 yes, 8 no. Arizona.
Arizona votes 7 1/2 yes, 11 1/2 no.
Alaska's 19 votes were cast, 7 1/2 votes yes, 11 1/2 votes no. Arkansas, 33.
Arkansas passes.
Arkansas passes. California, 174.
California votes 173 aye, 1 nay.
The California vote was 173 yes, 1 no. Canal Zone, 5.
Canal Zone votes 4 nays, 1 abstain.
The Canal Zone vote was 4 votes no and 1 abstain. Colorado, 35.
Mr. Chairman, Colorado cast 34 votes yes, 1 vote no.
The Colorado vote, 34 yes, 1 no. Connecticut, 44.
Connecticut is now polling.
Connecticut passed. Delaware, 22.
Delaware cast 2 votes yes, 18 votes no.
Delaware cast 2 votes yes, 18 votes no. The District of Columbia, 23 votes.
The District of Columbia, the vote in this city, votes 22 aye. The outgoing National Committee woman has already disappeared.
The District of Columbia vote was 22 yes and 1 not voting. Florida, 63. Florida,
Mr. President, Florida votes 6 votes aye, 55 votes no, 2 delegates not voting.
The Florida vote was 6 votes yes, 55 votes no, and 2 not voting. Georgia, 43 votes.
Georgia, regular Democrats vote 5 for the minority, 17 and a half for the majority.
Will you give that to me in yes and no's so I can get them in the right columns? I know you're splitting your vote, but I want to get them in the right place.
Georgia, regular Democrats cast 5 votes minority, 17 and a half votes majority.
5 and 17 and a half.
The Georgia.
It's 5 votes.
This is for the majority. Is that right?
5 votes minority would be 5 ayes.
Okay.
Just going to restate it.
Would you please restate that vote for me, please?
Madam Secretary?
Yes.
The Georgia Loyal National Democrats cast 20 votes for the minority report, 1/2 vote abstained.
Now, didn't he have 17? Tell him to restate his vote was yes.
If you will, please, the first Georgia group who cast the vote, I'd like to know whether that's 5 no and 17 yes.
The Georgia regular Democrats, once more,
Thank you.
cast 5 votes in the minority, 17 and 1/2 in the majority. Is that clear?
That's very fine. Thank you very much. Okay. Guam, 5.
Guam votes 5 no.
Guam votes 5 no. Hawaii, 26.
Hawaii, 26 no.
Hawaii votes 26 no. Idaho, 25.
Idaho votes 23 votes no, 2 votes yes.
The Idaho vote, 23 no, 2 yes. Illinois, 118 votes.
Illinois, 18 votes yes, 100 votes no.
The Illinois vote, 18 yes, 100 no. Indiana, 63. Indiana?
Indiana pass.
Indiana passes at this time. Iowa, 46.
Iowa votes 23 and 1/2 yes, 22 and 1/2 no.
Iowa votes 23 and 1/2 yes, and 22 and 1/2 no. Kansas, 38.
Madam Secretary, Kansas is caucusing, and may we pass until the end of the roll call?
Kansas passes for the moment. Kentucky, 46.
Kentucky, 6 and 1/2 votes yes, 39 and 1/2 votes no.
Kentucky casts 6 and 1/2 votes yes, and 39 and 1/2 votes no. Louisiana, 36.
Louisiana votes 36 no.
Louisiana votes 36 votes no. Maine, 27.
Yes.
there was one absent. I think this is correct. Maine cast 26 votes no and 1 absent. Maryland, 49.
Maryland cast 2 votes yes, 47 votes no.
The Maryland vote 2 votes yes, 47 no. Massachusetts, 72.
Massachusetts passes at this time, Madam Chairman.
Massachusetts passes. Michigan, 96.
Michigan, 26 yes, 67 no.
Michigan cast 26 yes, 67 no. Minnesota, 52.
Madam Secretary, Minnesota passes.
Minnesota passes. Mississippi, 24.
Mississippi votes 8.5 no, 12.5 yes.
That's okay. Missouri, 60. Oh, I'm sorry. Mississippi cast 12.5 yes and 8.5 no. Missouri, 60. Missouri?
Missouri passes.
Missouri passes. Montana, 26.
Montana votes 3.5 yes, 22.5 no.
Montana cast 3.5 yes and 22.5 no. Nebraska, 30.
Nebraska votes 13 yes, 15 no, 2 not voting.
Nebraska cast 13 yes, 15 no, and 2 not voting. Nevada, 22.
Madam Secretary, Nevada votes 12.5 yes, 9.5 no.
Nevada cast 12.5 yes, 9.5 no. New Hampshire, 26. New Hampshire?
New Hampshire casts 25 yes, 1 abstention.
New Hampshire cast 25 votes yes and 1 abstention. New Jersey, 82.
Madam Chairman, New Jersey cast 21 yes, 61 no.
New Jersey cast 21 yes, 61 no. New Mexico, 26.
New Mexico casts 11 votes yes, 15 votes no.
New Mexico cast 11 votes yes and 15 no. New York, 190.
New York is caucusing, we pass.
New York passes. North Carolina, 59.
North Carolina votes 58 no, 1 yes.
North Carolina cast 58 no and 1 yes. North Dakota, 25.
North Dakota casts 18 no, 7 yes.
North Dakota cast 18 no and 7 yes. Ohio, 115 votes.
Ohio passes for the president.
Ohio passes. Oklahoma, 41.
Oklahoma passes.
Oklahoma passes. Oregon, 35. Oregon?
Oregon casts 31 yes, 3 no.
Oregon cast 31 yes and 3 no. Pennsylvania, 130.
Pennsylvania passes temporarily.
Pennsylvania passes at the moment. Puerto Rico, 8.
Puerto Rico
cast 8 votes no.
Puerto Rico cast 8 votes no. Rhode Island, 27.
Rhode Island cast 24.5 votes no, 2.5 votes yes.
Would you repeat that vote for me, please?
Rhode Island cast 24.5 votes no, 2.5 votes yes.
The Rhode Island vote, 24.5 votes no, 2.5 yes. South Carolina, 28.
South Carolina cast 28 votes no.
South Carolina cast 28 votes no. South Dakota.
Mr. Chairman, South Dakota casts 2 votes no, 24 votes yes.
South Dakota votes 2 votes no and 24 yes. Tennessee, 51 votes.
Tennessee cast 49.5 votes no, 1/2 vote yes, 1 absent.
One pass. The Tennessee vote is 49.5 no, 1/2 vote yes, and 1 passing. Texas, 104.
Texas votes 104 votes no.
Thank you, Governor, for not splitting that up tonight. Texas votes 104 votes no. Utah, 26. Excuse me. Utah, 26.
Utah votes no 21, yes 5.
Utah votes 21 votes no and 5 yes. Vermont, 22.
Vermont votes 14 yes, 7 no, 1 absent.
They can't have but 21 votes anyway.
It's 21.
Okay.
Tell them to restate it.
I know what it is. The committee woman isn't here. The Vermont vote is 14 yes, 7 no, and 1 absent. Virginia, 54 votes.
Virginia cast 53 votes no, 1 vote yes.
Virginia votes 53 votes no, 1 yes. The Virgin Islands.
Virgin Islands, Madam Chairman, casts 4 votes no, 1 vote not present.
The Virgin Island vote is 4 votes no, 1 absent. Washington, 47. The state of Washington.
Madam Secretary, State of Washington votes yes 16 votes, no 28 votes.
The vote of the state of Washington, 16 votes yes, 28 votes no. West Virginia.
West Virginia cast 29 votes no, 9 votes yea.
The West Virginia vote is 29 no and 9 yes. Wisconsin, 59 votes.
Wisconsin votes 3 no, 54 yes, and 2 absent.
54 yes. 54, 3, and 2.
The Wisconsin vote is 54 yes, 3 no, and 2 absent. Wyoming, 22.
Madam Secretary, Wyoming cast 15.5 votes no and 6.5 votes yes.
The Wyoming vote is 15.5 votes no, 6.5 votes yes.